What's up, Keller Williams Realty Partners? Coming to you with the second of many videos from the seller's point of view. Again, this is the email I sent out. The last one I made was from the seller's point of view for due diligence and the inspection. This was going to be just on the buyer's loan. And again, this is part of the email I sent out to all my sellers so they know what's going on. And again, I'm using this as an opportunity to educate you about the process as well. So it says here, your buyer's loan, even though we have a pre-approval letter, your buyer's loan is not fully approved yet. Very, very rarely is that loan going to go through underwriting right away. That does happen from time to time, but there are still last minute verifications of employment, verifications of income. They'll probably, most likely for the buyer of any loan, are going to pull credit one more time to make sure they haven't gone and done anything crazy and run up their credit, or they're going to make sure they're still working. They're going to make sure they're making roughly still the same amount of money they did before. So again, a pre-approval letter is not a commitment to lend. It's very important for you to know that as a listing agent, and very important for your seller to know that too. Any buyer will still have to go through the underwriting process and will not be fully approved until just days before the closing. That's not always true, but it's almost always true. We will not usually get a clear to close until just days before the closing. My experience is just this. If we have 30 days to get a loan closed, they're going to take every last bit of that. That's just how it goes. Not all the time, but almost every time. And again, I tell the seller this is very typical. Many times I will be in the dark about the buyer's loan. That's the absolute truth. Most lenders will talk to you to a certain degree, but first of all, they're not really required to. And to be honest with you, not even really required to tell you the truth. I hate to be cynical about it, but I've been a lender myself, and I've just seen this. I've seen it many, many times. So just know that there's a certain degree of trust that you're going to have, and sometimes things do fall apart at the last minute. We don't want to freak the seller out, but we also want to make sure he or she knows that. All right? It does not happen often, but sometimes buyers are dishonest about their income and debts, or make bad decisions with money and credit right before closing. We've all seen that meme or that joke about someone who pulls up to their final walkthrough in a brand new car. Well, I'm here to tell you what, that has wrecked loans and wrecked closings before. I have been through the process, not many, but several times where there was an unknown problem with their credit report. I don't know how the lender missed it, but that does happen. They're many times, as I say, dishonest about their income, or maybe even they don't realize. Maybe they're self-employed and they declared early on that they make $100,000 a year, when in actuality they take so many write-offs that in reality what they pay Uncle Sam is closer to $25,000 a year. Not all lenders are the same. Some lenders will go through as much of the process as possible. They're going to verify income docs. They're going to pull credit. They're going to mine that credit report. They're going to really make sure, because not all income is the same. Self-employment income is treated a little bit different than, bonus income, overtime income. All this stuff is treated differently. And some lenders actually lack the experience to issue a full pre-approval letter. Sometimes they just go through the process and they do a pre-approval online. The company will issue them a pre-approval letter and they go shop with that. So this is why it's always probably a good idea to try to have a conversation with the loan officer before you accept a contract for your sellers. And again, they don't have to tell you anything, but I like to at least get a warm fuzzy from them and have a conversation with them. This can cause back to the reading, this can cause last-minute closing delays and even cause a loan to be declined, forcing us to put the home back on the market. I haven't had this happen many times, but I would say when I was listing a lot, once a year something like this would happen. Okay, again, this is rare but possible. Although many lenders will discuss your buyer's loan with me, they are not required to. Furthermore, the buyer or lender is not required to disclose that they may be in trouble with the financing. There are many times where the loan is actually in trouble. They find something, they come up with a problem, and we're completely in the dark about it. They are not under any obligation to tell me that as a listing agent. I'll call and I'll check with them usually once a week. Hey, how are things going? And usually they're very honest, usually they're very forthright, but I've had the exact opposite of that before. I've had it to where the loan officer completely stopped communicating with me and the deal fell apart. Again, rare, but it does happen. From the buyer's perspective, the lender may and almost certainly will ask for items, paperwork, and explanations that are excessive. Okay. Now, I bring all that up to say, and many of you have been through the lending process, I promise you the loan officer is not going to ask for anything that he absolutely doesn't have to have. That's just the truth. But sometimes the paperwork and explanations they're required to give are just plain silly. It's just a fact. Now, that doesn't mean they don't need it, and that doesn't mean that when that happens sometimes, delays happen. Delays happen because sometimes the buyers aren't as quick about it. You know, again, my experience as a lender, I have told people not to do certain things. I've told them to make sure that we document any gift money. And instead of bringing cash to put it in their account, we need to get a check from the person who's giving gift money, and we need to document it. And they flat out did not do what I said. They thought they could get by with it. They didn't listen. I don't know why, but sometimes buyers will do some things that are inexplicable, that are just plain silly. That is part of the process. And again, we as listing agents, we try to sniff that out to the extent that we're able, but many times we're just in the dark. It's just a fact. Sometimes this causes delays in closing. Please be aware that your patience may get tested with the process no matter who the lender is, as they all have to abide by the same federal rules. I would say 19 out of 20 deals that you're going to be dealing with are going to be financing that is backed by Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, FHA, VA, or USDA. Those are all, they all have certain guidelines that the government makes them follow in order to create liquidity in the mortgage-backed securities market. Now, I'm not going to get into that too much, but there are things that those loan officers have to abide by sometimes, and there are things that those buyers have to abide by sometimes. And like I was mentioning earlier, sometimes they may think it's silly, and maybe it is silly, and they try to circumvent those, and they almost never get by with it. And what happens is it either messes up the loan totally where we don't close, or in most cases it delays it. That's just what happens. As we approach closing, back to the reading, as we approach closing or the closing date, the lender or attorney may need more time to complete the process. Most of the time, this is the lender that needs more time. And to be honest with you, a lot of times it's because the buyer messed something up. Not always, but sometimes. They didn't get the paperwork to the lender in time or whatever. From time to time, it is the attorney. Maybe it isn't their fault. Maybe they're having a hard time clearing title. Maybe there was something wrong with the title that we didn't know about ahead of time. But as we approach that closing date, the lender or the attorney may come to us, and they can come to us as late as the actual closing date and say we need more time, and they can unilaterally, meaning they don't have to get our permission to extend the process another 8 days. Okay? So just be aware that that can happen, and you need to make sure your sellers are aware of that. Again, there's nothing they can do about it. They are contractually obligated to give them that 8 days. What you're going to want to do, though, and I'm kind of getting into the weeds here, is you're going to want to make that buyer side issue what's called the 8-day unilateral notice to extend closing. You don't want to do this with an amendment, because if you do it with an amendment, the 8-day extension automatically is built in there. Okay, so you want to make them use that 8 days, so at the end of the 8 day, if they keep delaying the process, you can make the decision whether or not you want to allow the buyer some more time, or if you want to move on, maybe to your backup deal or put it back on the market. Okay. Again, this 8-day unilateral extension does not require your approval. Any extension beyond this, again, will require your approval. All right. Next, we are going to talk about the appraisal, and I appreciate you watching.